Good afternoon. Welcome to Grade 12 English First Additional Language. Today is the last lesson in our series of language lessons that are applicable for Grade 12 and Grade 11. Today we are going to look at cartoons, how to analyze a cartoon, what to look out for, the techniques to create humor, and how it is asked in your exam or test. It is a beautiful day to learn something new, so here we go. As I said, we are first going to look at some of the techniques in humor that is used by cartoonists to create humor in a cartoon. The first one we're going to look at is a pun. Now, a pun contains a humorous play on the different meanings one word or phrase could have. So it's one word with different meanings, and that is to make it funny. So let's have a look. So it's the humorous use of words to suggest another word with the same sound or a different meaning. Look at the examples and maybe you will understand better. Don't let Cinderella play baseball. She always runs away from the ball. So there's a pun on the word ball. Right, on the one side it can mean the round thing that you play baseball with, and on the other hand it can mean the place where the prince and the event where the prince and Cinderella danced. That was also a ball. So don't let Cinderella play baseball. She always runs away from the ball. Obviously, 12 o'clock she ran away. I just flew in from Chicago. Boy, are my arms tired. So there's a pun on the word flew. All right. So we all understood it was with an aeroplane. If you say it like that, can refer to like a bird with wings, in this case with his arms. To write with a broken pencil is pointless. So the pun is on the word pointless. When a pencil is broken, there is no point, and the word pointless means in vain. There's no use for it. Okay, what did the one plate say to the other? Food's on me tonight. Right, usually when something is on you, it means you are paying for the food. In this case, the plate say to the other plate. So there's a double meaning of that. The food is literally placed on the plate. And then, why is there a fence around the graveyard? Right, is it to keep in or to keep out? There's an ellipsis to make you think a while. The next one we are looking at is this a real life or is this just fantasy? All right. The spelling is not necessarily the same, but it sounds the same, and it is a pun on fantasy. All right, it can either be the cold drink, the yellow one you see in front of you, and this is obviously a phrase from Bohemian Rhapsody from Freddie Mercury. So this is a very good pun created here. And then what kind of shorts do clouds wear? And there is a pun on the word underwear. It's changed a bit to thunderwear. Right, the next one we have is incongruity. It uses things that do not fit together, and a bizarre and extraordinary situation is often created. So it's things that does not belong, that does not fit together. Like, for instance, these two signs, stop and keep moving, placed directly next to one another to create a bizarre and extraordinary situation. Right, the next one we are going to look at is hyperbole. So things are exaggerated to a ridiculous point, over exaggeration to a ridiculous point. If we look at the example, obviously this little boy was in the doctor's office and he just came out and he says the needle was this big, and you can see by the way he is holding his hands how big that needle was. That's impossible. So he is over exaggerating up to a point that it is ridiculous. The next one, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. right, he's not really going to eat a horse. It just is to emphasize how extremely hungry he is. And then this one is a very good example. It must be 500 degrees in the shade. My back is killing me, and this bag weighs a ton. So there are 3 hyperboles in one. It must be 500 degrees in the shade, meaning it's extremely hot. My back is killing me. His back is hurting, and this bag weighs a ton. So in other words, the bag is really heavy. So in this one speech bubble of this person, he used 3 over exaggerations to a ridiculous point. It's not 500 degrees. He's not dying from back pain, and the bag definitely does not weigh a ton. It's only very heavy. Right, the next one that we see is anticlimax. Expectations are built up only to let down at the last moment. I think the most well-known anticlimax example is, why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? Right, so you expected he was going to do something. It's just to get to the other side. And then another one, he turns around and drops dead of a heart attack before we even pounce on him. That's quite an anticlimax to a good stalking, isn't it? There's these 2 lions out on a hunt, and the poor buck died of a heart attack before they could even attack him at all. Right, the next one, overthrow of expectations. What you expect to be said or done is turned around. So you expected something. So you see, it's almost the same as an anticlimax. In this case, young Peter, I found a Calyphera orthoptera on the patio. What do we expect? We expect his friend to ask, what is a Calyphera, blah, blah, blah. And the friend asks, whoa, what is a patio? All right, so what you expect to be said or done is turned around. The opposite happens, something totally different. Another thing that's closely related to that is a twist in the tale. What you expect to be said or done is turned around. So the anticlimax, the overthrow of expectations, and the twist in tale have a lot of elements in common. They are almost the same. Right, so the next one we are going to look at is satire. Now, this is usually used with political cartoons. It's used when a writer uses biting humor that mocks or ridicules a person or a thing or an issue in order to communicate a serious underlying message. Now, that is important. He is mocking an issue, but there's always a serious underlying message. Now, the first example we look at is from one of the most famous satire cartoonists, Zapiro. And if we have a look at it, it's Taxi Spare Parts, and there's the salesperson, and behind him is the things that are on sale. It's wire, string, glue, masking tape, and scotch tape. So everything that is not supposed to be spare parts. So we can see from this cartoon that he is actually saying that taxis are not roadworthy. So he is making fun or ridiculing the issue of the fact that the taxis are using all of those spare parts to keep themselves on the road, and they're getting away with it. That is the serious underlying message. They are driving like that. They are not roadworthy, getting away with it, and nobody is doing anything about it. Right, the next one is applicable to what's going on in the world today. And this is obviously, if we look at the hair and everything, it's Donald Trump in front of us. And there's a picture of the coronavirus, and someone is saying, oh, great, he's got his Sharpie out. So again, He is ridiculing Donald Trump's approach to handling the coronavirus or how he is managing the situation. But the serious underlying message is that America is in trouble because he is not doing the right things. He is not managing the situation to benefit his country. Right. So you have to know, in order to understand the cartoons with satire, and you have to know what's going on around you in the world. Right. So that's very important. The next one we're going to look at is sarcasm. That is the use of irony to mock or convey contempt. Now, in this case, you say something, but you mean the opposite, and it's a sharp or bitter remark. Something like, thanks so much for that update about your super busy life. Nobody has ever gone to work, the gym, and made dinner in one day. How do you do it? All right. And then the next one, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you're an expert on my life and how I should live it. Please continue while I take notes. So it is to convey contempt, and it's usually a sharp, bitter remark. The next one is a parody. It takes the form of a well-known song, a TV program, a poem. It can be a painting, a well-known painting, but it changes the content to create a humorous effect. So it's, for instance, a song that everyone knows, and the cartoonist changes the words, and we all know the tune, and he changes the lyrics in order to make it funny and applicable to a certain situation. Now, the first example is, we all know the painting of Mona Lisa, and it is substituted with the face of Homer Simpson in order to make it funny. And then the next one, for all our Harry Potter fans, jingle bells, Umbridge smells, losers go away, Draco's hot, Voldemort's not, Hogwarts all the way. Hey, right. So obviously it is on the tune of Jingle Bells, on the and he's just substituted the words to make it applicable to the Harry Potter series. Right. So all the Harry Potter fans, I'm sure you can relate to that. And now we go over to irony. Now, irony is the discrepancy between appearance and reality. If we look at this guy, is trying his utmost best to open the packaging of a plastic cutter. So the cutter that he's supposed to be using to open that plastic is inside. So that is quite ironic. He can't get it out. And the next one is, if you look at the sign of that shop, and it is School of Safe Driving, and that shows the opposite, that horrific accident where someone drove into the School of Safe Driving. Obviously, the lessons did not pay off yet. The next one we're going to do is a euphemism. So that is describing something disagreeable, terrifying or offensive in a vague or a mild or more indirect way. So basically it's to say something a bit softer, in a softer way, that it's not so harsh, right? So the first one that we see here, he's reading a paper, you are fired, and he says to his wife, good news, dear, I'm going to be spending more time with the family, instead of blurting it out, I am fired, which is very harsh. And then another one, obviously, this poor man has been given a pink slip. That means he's been fired. Don't think of this as getting fired. Think of this as economic repositioning. All right, a very famous one is, you don't say someone has died, you say someone has passed away. Then we move on to ambiguity. It's when a piece of writing has a double or a hidden meaning. When a piece of writing or a word has a double or a hidden meaning. So Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. We all know the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, meaning he fell off the wall and he broke in pieces. But now the ambiguity is there had a great fall, because fall can be a season as well. All right, so that is obviously what is portrayed in the picture on your screen right now, and that is why it's ambiguous. Another example is he ran down the stairs to put out the fire in his pajamas. He ran down the stairs to put out the fire in his pajamas. Was the fire in his pajamas? Was the fire in the building? Where was, if you say it differently, he ran down the stairs in his pajamas to put out the fire. Then it's not ambiguous anymore. Right, so he ran down the stairs to put out the fire in his pajamas is ambiguous statement. So now let's look at cartoons specifically. Right? There are a certain form that you have to look at. There were certain words that will be in the questions that you will have to know. So first of all, we have 3 blocks in front of us. All right, and each block is known as a frame. So it's frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3. Right, then there's a speech bubble where John is talking. John is the human in this cartoon. Odie is the dog and Garfield is the cat. Now, John is obviously speaking. You'll see that's a speech bubble where he says, have you noticed how Odie is always smiling, Garfield? Right? John is a human. He's able to speak. You will see that Garfield only has thought bubbles because he's an animal. He cannot really speak. All right. So there's a thought bubble. You see it looks different than a speech bubble. Then you have to pay careful attention to the smallest detail when you look at a cartoon. You have to look at the body language of each of the characters. How do they use their bodies to convey a certain message? Remember, that is non-verbal communication. And then you have to use look at gestures, meaning movement of hands, or in this case, look at the movement lines in frame 1 of Odie's tail. And then the facial expression. Do they look sad or happy or irritated? And how do you know that? You can't ever tell me, if I ask you, how do you know from frame 2 that John looks or John is sad? You can't answer by his facial expression, because that doesn't tell me anything. You have to describe everything. In frame 1, we can see John is happy and excited because his eyes are wide open. He has a broad smile on his mouth. If you look at his shoulders are pulled back. Right, so he looks happy. But in frame 2, his eyes are almost closed. It's looking down. His mouth, the smile is gone. His mouth is just a straight line, and it's as if his shoulders are bowed forward. So you have to explain every single little detail. Remember, in a cartoon, you have to look at the tone of voice. You can see that with punctuation marks. If there's, for instance, words with exclamation marks at the end and it's printed in bold or bigger than the rest, it's an indication that that person is screaming or he is speaking louder. And then we have to look at all of the small details, all of the movement lines, every single thing. That is the key to analyzing a cartoon, is to look at each and every small detail. If we have a look at this Madam and Eve cartoon on your screen, we'll see again there are 4 blocks, which are 4 frames. And in frame 1, Madam is ticking. And the tick, 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 tick that is repeatedly written on there, it indicates that Madam is busy typing, probably on her cell phone. Then we move over and Eve is not paying attention on the road, but even though she's not driving. So Madam is, first of all, breaking the law by being on her cell phone and driving. And then in frame 2, you can see that there's a screech, big bold letters with double exclamation marks to indicate that it is very loud. It is also an example of onomatopoeia where they use the word to imitate the sound, because obviously she was on her phone, not paying attention to a car that stopped in front of her. Take note of the movement lines just on top of the car. All right, and then we move over to frame 3, and then you can see madam, and with exclamation mark. Texting while driving is dangerous, exclamation mark. So you can see by her facial expression that she's upset because she's frowning, her wide open mouth, her eyes are big open. It indicates that she is shouting and speaking loudly. So that's our visual clues. All right, our clues from the text is the words that are printed in bold and the exclamation marks. And then madam just answers, I know, phew, that was a close one. Right, we move over to frame 4. Wait till I tell mom. And again, while driving, she's on her phone. And then we look at Eve's facial expression. It indicates that she's disappointed or disapproves because she's frowning, her mouth is slanted sideways, and her body language shows that she's upset because her shoulders are drooping. So please take note of every small little detail that's in the cartoon, because that is what we're looking at. And never ever answer by her facial expression. You won't get any marks for that. You have to explain everything from her frowning to her eyebrows, to her eyes, to her nose, to her mouth, to her shoulders, to her hands. So start at the top and then you go all the way down and you describe everything that you see in detail. Right, now we're going to look at questions and answers that might be similar to those that you will get in an exam or a test. Now, this is nursery rhymes for lockdown times, and it's again Madam and Eve, and this nursery rhyme is Jack and Jill. Now, in frame 1, it is Mom and Tandy sitting there, and obviously she's reading the nursery rhyme to her. Frame 2, it is now the nursery rhyme. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch essential water. Now look at this example of a parody. He took a very familiar and a nursery rhyme that everyone knew, but he changed the words to fit with the situation, which is the lockdown time. So usually it would have been Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. All right, now to fetch essential water. And in frame 3, the cops were there, they grabbed Jack's hair, and now they're in intensive care. So he changed the nursery rhyme, and this is a perfect example of a parody. All right, and then in frame 3, we see the cops were there, they grabbed Jack's hair. Pay careful attention to Jack and Jill's facial expression. Look at the cops' facial expression. Look at the actions. Look at their hands. Look at the eyes, the eyebrows, their mouths. Shows you how they feel. And now they're in intensive care in frame 4. Get well soon, Jack and Jill. Let's have a look at the questions. I'll jump back to the cartoon every time we discuss it. Refer to frame 1. What is the setting of this frame? Now we spoke about it. This is sitting room in Madam's house during lockdown. Remember, setting refers to both time and place. So it's the sitting room in Madam's house. If you only say it's in Madam's house, it will also be correct. But the time is during lockdown. Right, that's important because this is what this whole cartoon is about. That's what your 2 marks are for time and place. And then what is Madam's mother doing in frame 1? So if we have a look, she's sitting with a book in front of her. Tandy is listening. So obviously she's reading a nursery rhyme to Tandy or to the little girl. All right, then the next question. How is refer to frame 2? It's always very important to look at that first instruction. If it says refer to frame 2, your answer will be in frame 2. You only look at frame 2. Do not refer to any of the other frames. 2.1, how is the nursery rhyme adapted to suit the context of the cartoon? All right, so we spoke about the nursery rhyme that Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. But the context of this cartoon is lockdown during this coronavirus crisis. All right, so the original nursery rhyme states to fetch a pail of water. It is changed to fetch essential water. So during lockdown, people are allowed to be outside their houses if they go to fetch water with a bucket because it's regarded as essential for survival, right? So that is how you answer it to suit the context of the cartoon. So you must make sure what is the context. It's lockdown right now. Know the rules. You're not allowed to go outside unless it's for essential services or essential goods that you need. All right. And that's why the nursery rhyme was adapted to fetch essential water. Then the next one, identify 2 reasons for the cartoonist drawing the tap on the top of the hill. Go back, let's have a look. So you see in frame 2, on the top of the hill is the tap. Now, obviously, Jack and Jill went up the hill. All right, so the tap must be there to suit the nursery rhyme. And maybe it's to emphasize the economic hardships that some of the people in South Africa have to endure. So they do not have running water at their house. They have to go a long distance or sometimes really up a hill to fetch water. Always remember, give detailed answers. Okay. Then refer to frame 3. Why does the cartoonist make use of the 3 dots, the ellipses? Now let's have a look at frame 3, right? The cops were there, they grabbed Jack's hair, ellipses. Now the function of an ellipsis is either to make you think or to show you that something has been left out. So maybe the answer is in the something that's been left out. Right? It's to emphasize that grabbing Jack's hair is not the only violent act being committed against these 2 children. Right? So there's a lot of other things as well. And then state 2 visual clues. Now, visual is about the pictures, nothing to do with the words right now. To show that these children did not expect to be treated in this manner. Now, let's have a look at the visual clues in frame 3. First of all, look at their eyes. Their eyes are drawn very big, so their eyes are wide open because they're so scared. And then their teeth are clenched, and you can refer to their hands and their fingers that are spread wide open. All right, it's as if they want to protest, if they want to protect themselves. All right, so the answer there will be their eyes that was wide open and their mouths or their teeth that are clenched. And if you refer to their hands, it's also correct. And then 3.3, is the police's behavior acceptable? Discuss your view, mentioning 2 points. All right, then no, these children were innocently fetching water. They are using excessive force or violence, which is not needed in this case because these children do not pose any threat. They acted within the law because they went up the hill to fetch essential water, something that they needed. And then explain the irony in this cartoon. It is ironic that the policeman should actually protect these people, yet here in this cartoon, they are assaulting innocent people. Remember, give detailed answers in your own words at all times. Right, so that concludes the lesson for today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I want to leave you with one thought today. None of us knows what the future holds, but remember this. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. Never lose hope. Never give up. Stay safe. Make wise choices. Goodbye.